Are you finding it challenging to help your students stay organized and focused? Welcome to my video on understanding executive skills and their role in ADHD. I'm going to dive into some practical strategies that can make a real difference in your classroom. So welcome to today's video on understanding executive skills and their really important role in ADHD, especially in the context of elementary students. We'll explore what those skills are, why they matter, and how these executive skills impact students, particularly those with ADHD. So let's start by establishing what executive skills are. Executive skills are the mental processes that help us manage our thoughts, behaviors, and feelings to achieve our goals. They include a range of abilities such as planning, organizing, and regulating actions, and all of these things are essential for success in everyday life. So these skills are like invisible conductors. They orchestrate various aspects of students' lives, from organizing homework to managing emotions and, of course, social interactions with you, with their peers, at home, everywhere. These skills empower our students to become more self-sufficient and effective learners. For students with ADHD, the classroom can present unique challenges. These students may find focusing, organizing, and completing tasks particularly difficult. Understanding and supporting their executive skills is vital to creating an inclusive and supportive learning environment. Just a reminder, these strategies that we will discuss can simply be a part of any lesson, an activity available to the whole class, because all of our students are developing their executive skills. This is part of a normal developmental process, and executive skills are developed in as they push against their environment. We develop these skills. The only distinction between students who struggle with their executive skills or students who've actually been diagnosed with ADHD is they're just developmentally delayed in their development of these skills. So the strategies that I share are not to be assigned just to an IEP. They are great for whole class implementation, which supports all of your students and makes your job way easier. So as we go through this video, I'm going to identify what may be an executive skill deficit, how it can manifest in the classroom, and a way to support it, including an example from my classroom. All right, so for example, inattention is an executive deficit. It's a lack of focus. So it can manifest as difficulty focusing on tasks like listening to a story, inability to focus on their interactions with their peers, inability to continue to work at things for an extended period of time. And to support students with this deficit, you might want to consider allowing them to draw the story as it's read, which also serves as a comprehension activity. So, I mean, it's more bang for your buck, honestly. So an example in my classroom would often be this: I allowed my students to draw a picture on a whiteboard of what I was reading. And then when the story was done, I would then have the students explain their pictures to their classmates. So they were listening to a story, which is great for auditory processing. And in my curriculum, it's listening is one of the skills in the curriculum. It is drawing and connecting comprehension. It's practicing fine motor control. It's practicing their drawing, which is in and of itself a skill. It's and also it's got the oral language, and then sharing with the partner, which is community building, and listening to a partner, which is more attention and focus. So there's all sorts of richness in this strategy, and that's my whole point going forward is as we support our students with ADHD, we need to understand the richness of digging deep into the strategies and what that can bring to our actual instruction. So hyperactivity, we tend to think of students with ADHD as being physically hyperactive. It's actually not always physical. Sometimes the hyperactivity is in the brain. And so students with hyperactivity may find it hard to manage that restless energy that they have. And this can make sitting still during activities like circle time really difficult. Allowing them even the simple simple option of allowing them to stand can help them to manage that energy in a socially appropriate way. As long as you provide clear expectations, which are set and then maintained. So we need to establish the expectation, teach it, and maintain it, but that makes it standing really simple. At carpet time, all of my students were allowed to stand. Very few of them actually chose to do it, but all of them were allowed to stand. But there were standards, parameters around that. They could not lean on desks for one reason. If you're going to lean on desks, then it kind of undermines the whole option. So, and I would explain that to them, why they couldn't lean on desks. But there's also the danger of the desk slipping out from underneath them and them falling back and getting hurt. So I would also explain that to students. Now, the other parameters were that when they chose to sit and when they were done with standing, they had to sit straight down. They didn't get to kind of look around, see where their bestie was hanging out, wander through the classroom or through the carpet, disrupting everybody. No, it was straight down. And then once they sat down, that was it for carpet time. They don't get to pop back up again. So there were parameters around it. We taught it, we expected, I maintained it, and we were good to go. So some students will struggle with starting and completing tasks. This might be because they struggled to get started on their own or independently. So regular check-ins to ensure understanding and using countdowns can help them to manage their time and tasks better. For example, during writing and math, if a student hadn't started their work, I would lightly initial where they were on their work and explain that when I came back, I wanted to see that they had made progress. Of course, before I do this, I make sure that they can demonstrate understanding, and me going there and just even providing the reinforcement of standing there um, helps them to kind of get past that, make the first few scratches on their paper, and often that's all that they needed. Once I had answered any questions they may have had about the work to be done, um, again, I say that was the only nudge that they needed. And the reality is that I conferenced with all of my students. So this is just, I may go to those students first, or I might give them a chance to see if they can get themselves going. But I didn't make it pointed to just check in on these 4 students and then just let things go. No, we do writing conferences with our students. And when my students did independent written work, I was always going around the classroom, as most of us do, checking their work. And as a matter of fact, it was one of the strategies that I used to mark their work because research supports immediate feedback. So I marked their work, not with I marked with a check mark if they got it right. And if they were still struggling, we talked about it a little bit and I would circle it. And then I would know that they needed some support with that work when I looked at their paper later, but they had a chance to fix it right away. And as we all know, we make the best learning from our mistakes. And we've all seen developmentally delayed organizational skills, which can be a real struggle for students with ADHD or students that haven't been taught any organization or responsibility at home. You will see this lack of organization in students who struggle to create structure in an activity for themselves. Whether it's putting away paper at the end of the lesson, whether it's getting things organized or getting the resources they need to complete an art activity. They may need help organizing their desks or their backpacks. The structure in this activity would be things like, for example, if you're organizing a desk, you would be providing structure, teaching them how to put things in piles, organizing the piles, what to do with the piles, how to redo their desks when they were done. And just I'm going to go back there a little bit because I don't want to sound too redundant. Sorting into piles is one step. Organizing what's within each pile, by date or by color or by like whatever. The piles might be different subjects that then have to be organized according to where they were occurring in the unit. So their notes are are organized. So then once they have organized into those piles, what to do with the piles? Do they put them back in their binder in an organized manner? Do they put them in their mail slot to take them home? Do they put them on their desk? Do they put a paper clip on them? And all of those are reminiscent of the kind of things that my students were expected to do with their piles. Um, and then how to put everything back, everything that they had pulled out of their desk, not just their binder, their desk, back into their desk in an organized manner when they're done. So, and doing this one and done is not appropriate for most of your students, certainly not these students. They're going to need this instruction and practice repetitively to build those neuron pathways, to develop those executive skills. So setting aside collaborative time for organization can teach them the skills to structure their activities and their materials effectively. So organization, I'm going to say, was a big challenge for me until I learned to take on small projects like closets, and I organized the children's closet at our church where all the craft supplies and things were, and I organized in my children's classrooms as a volunteer. And over time, organization became a strength for me. Another area of executive skills, which can be a real deficit for many of your students, but definitely students with ADHD, is key to handling frustrations, such as when games don't go the way they had hoped or planned. So your students may struggle with showing their frustration or disappointment in ways that are appropriate, and you're going to support these students by setting, teaching, and reinforcing clear expectations and praising good sportsmanship. You're going to teach strategies for managing emotions and then practicing these emotions with them, and even modeling emotions when, tech doesn't work, or a computer sign-on won't happen, or the sub didn't get an activity completed, or any of those moments that cause us stress during the day, or sudden shift in schedule by administration. You're going to model, okay, guys, hold on just a sec. I just need to breathe for a couple minutes here because, I've had a little bit of stress. I wasn't expecting to lose those papers. Let me just take a moment to think about what we're going to do next. And so you're modeling those strategies for them, and then helping them to practice when they need them. Over time, doing these things can help students manage their own emotions. And just remember, though, the time to teach these things to kids is not when they're having a meltdown, of course. The time to teach these things to students is when they're calm and hopefully happy and engaged. When they're dysregulated, they need time to just regulate themselves. And then hopefully they can choose an activity to continue to calm down further. One challenge that's often not widely recognized in the classroom, working memory challenges can make juggling information really difficult for our students. So this in the classroom may look like your students forgetting steps you have laid out in tasks like art projects, or in math, when we say to them, okay, finish this worksheet, then go get your binder, and then you can do your independent work and practice your math facts, and then I want you to put that in the mail slot and put this sheet in, like, so many steps, right? They're going to get lost. So because they just don't have the working memory. This is often perceived as misbehavior, especially if the students can't remember what to do next. So they got time on their hands. They don't have any jobs left to do because they've forgotten them. So this is simple. And to support your students, you're going to display each step on the whiteboard and then leave it there for your students to refer back to, which serves as a helpful guide for your students. So this can look like notes on the board. And I'm not talking long sentences that take you time to get on your board. 1, worksheet. 2, binder. In other words, put it away. 3, math facts. 4, mailbox. 5, put your boots on. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in your class. In my art class, I had a lot of fun with it. Every art project, and I do mean every art project, I did each step of the project. So if I did an art project that was an apple that was a Zentangle, the pictures, and then you scribble all the lines in them and then you color them. Okay, so I would do one where there's just a plain piece of paper. Then the next thing that they would see up on the board, so I'd post that on the board. Then the next step on the board, I would show that it was partially cut out. I'd even draw a pair of scissors above that. And then the next one, I would draw little squiggly lines in it. And then the next one, I would draw little squiggly lines and it would be colored. And then the final one is I would draw little squiggly lines and color it and then have it glued on construction paper. So, of course, I had to have like 5 different Zentangles and I had to draw squiggly lines in, I had to cut 4 of them out, draw squiggly lines in 3 of them, color 2 of them, and post 1 of them on construction paper. So I'm not going to say that this option for art is not some effort, but consider the fact that you will be using that art project multiple years. Maybe not every year, but multiple years. And the number of questions that you will not have to answer, it is more than worth the time that it requires. So just an example of how you can put instructions up that are going to support all of your students and support your students with working memory challenges that can bring, just imagine how that would bring the behavior in your classroom right down. Between the hands that aren't going up all the time, the kids talking to each other as they try and help each other, the students that are off task because they don't know what to do next, and so they feel that they've got a lot of time. Just think about how much behavior management is in that simple strategy. You might find it worthwhile. And then there's time blindness. Students with timeline blindness, boy, that's a little difficult to articulate. They may lose track of time during activities. Put up your hand if that's ever happened to you in your class. Their struggle with this may mean they manage their time really poorly, and we've all seen that. So an easy way to identify this is that they will lose track of time even during play. And to support them, try using timers and give warnings to help them transition smoothly between tasks. It helps them to prepare their mind for their shift because don't forget, ADHD is a neurodiversity, and sometimes their ability to transition flexibly is a struggle for them. So if you give them a warning, a 2-minute warning, they know it's coming and they've got that awareness to, and then 2 minutes is enough time to kind of hopefully wrap it up a bit. I'm not saying they're going to suddenly like it. I'm going to say it allows them to prepare themselves emotionally and any behavior or disappointment will be tempered. I often gave 2 minutes warning. And a real trick that I had was an audible timer on my phone that they loved. The sound of Chewbacca roaring got my students moving with a smile, and just like that. And because Chewbacca was so adored by the whole classroom, I mean really adored. When my phone on occasion wasn't working and didn't have the time to figure it out during the school day what I had done to prevent Chewbacca from working, we would say, "Oh, Chewbacca seems to be on a holiday. It's just a bell today," or "Oh, he must be asleep." You know, if I'd forgotten to put Chewbacca on, like we would tell all these stories, and the students just loved it. And for the record, Chewbacca came from a student. The idea of I had a little tinkle bell that was recommended in a teacher book, totally ignored by the students. And then Chewbacca came up during a class one day and I accidentally saw it. I came upon this buzzer on my phone that evening, and so I brought Chewbacca into the class and it went on for years. And of course I taught siblings often, and so they knew the story of where Chewbacca came from. So it became kind of a family joke as well as a classroom one. But anyways, we were all very fond of Chewbacca, and so the students were very excited. Well, no, excited is not the wrong word. They were very willing to get up and go to the next thing. It created quite a pleasant feeling in the classroom. So I don't know if you've ever seen students who have total meltdown if they discovered that the day has shifted, but they're not walked through the day at the beginning of the day to have time to adapt and be flexible. They just suddenly encounter that they're excited to go to music and it's not music today, even though it's an exciting activity like the firemen are there with the fire truck, but they don't have that mental flexibility to cope. And that's what it is. It involves the ability to adapt to changes, which can be a real challenge for some students. Excuse me. So when the schedule changes, you will see these students resist change by getting frustrated and shutting down or crying, just refusing to participate. And you're thinking, my goodness, the firemen are here and waiting, and why can't you be excited with the rest of us? Just because they're overwhelmed by the change. It's not defiance or petulance or anything. It's just they're overwhelmed for many of them. I can't say for all, But for many of them, it's just overwhelmed and they're trying to manage those emotions. So to support your students, you are going to need to teach self-regulation and gain those strategies that we teach them when they're calm so they can implement them. And you're also going to want to provide advance notice in simple ways, like referring to upcoming events and changes on the calendar. So, we would put the calendar for the month on the board. And when I knew that the firemen were coming, when we put up the schedule for the month, I would have a little marker on the calendar that says the firemen are coming that day. And depending on how big the change was and how big the upcoming event was, we might count down the days or do whatever. But the day before, I would always say, now remember to tell your parents that this is coming tomorrow. And what is it we're going to miss, guys? Okay, well, no, you don't get to miss math. We're going to, although I never phrase it like that because we don't think of math as a negative, but oh no, you don't get to skip that class. We are going to just do a little bit less everywhere else so we still do everything tomorrow. Or it may be we're moving that one to the next day and we get a double block the next day, whatever. But we're communicating ahead of time so they can really adjust. And then when they forget overnight, which they absolutely are going to do, then we go through the shape of day. And because we've reviewed it many times, it's like instead of a, oh no, it's a, oh yeah. And it's as simple as that. And that's just communicating to all the students in the class. And that's great for all of them. Because honestly, in life, for exciting events, anticipation is half of the joy. So, just to remember that the providing advance notice and reviewing expectations can ease these transitions for students. All right, then. Okay, so social skills are crucial for effective communication and interaction, and they are a part of executive skills. And childhood is really about developing these skills. And again, all of our students are developing executive skills. Our students with ADHD or with ADHD indicators are just delayed in developing these skills, and because their minds don't necessarily perceive what's going on around them. They can be very focused and so aren't perceiving what everybody else is learning. So some students are going to be more delayed than others, and that's going to be for a variety of reasons. It's not all going to be our students with ADHD. So there are going to be students who struggle with social cues, emotional regulation, impulsivity, and all of them are going to struggle to engage and join in group play. So our supports for these students are going to include teaching your students to self-regulate, teach, establish, and reinforce expectations so they get into the rhythm of developing the neuroplasticity or developing the neural pathworks to do all of these things as they see it taught, practiced, run into the pushback of you reinforcing it, and all of these things will develop the neural pathway, and you're going to encourage sharing. All of these things are helpful. Also, you might want to consider using tools like partner cards, were a real popular thing in my class. And these help students build better relationships as they interact with all their peers and build relationships with all their peers. Again, not best buddies, not everybody invited to the birthday party, but just being treated with respect and kindness in the classroom. That's the goal that we're going for. And because we're wanting them to avoid experiencing the path of being the last classmate partnered up, or trying to figure out who wants to be there, even if they're not the last partner, how do they find one, or what happens if they're planning with a partner and somebody else comes along and scoops that partner. And here's the truth. Partner cards are even, I was kind of at first curious about why even my most popular students really like the partner cards. Clearly they had no challenges finding partners. Here's the reason. Because if you've got 5 friends who all want to be your partner, the easiest thing for you is to be given a card and be told who your partner is. Takes all the stress from all the stress of partnering up off of the most popular students. And I mean, I learned this observing my daughter's peers, and it's really powerful and important to protect all of our students from that scenario. So as teachers, nurturing these skills with empathy and creativity can transform classroom challenges into really empowering milestones. By supporting the development of executive skills, you're You're building, creating future problem solvers and resilient community members. These are lifetime skills, or what I call 60-year learning, because our kids are going to take them throughout their lifetime as we develop these skills within them. So let's continue to inspire our young learners one skill at a time. Your dedication is really going to make a difference for them. I would also like to add, before you go, I would love it if you could like and subscribe. It really helps me to grow my channel and share what I know with teachers like you. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.